very funny to know that if I'm a minority, the reason I'm poor is because there is an elite college. That just doesn't make sense, right? I have to prove to you how having a dream and having some motivation to get there is very much important, and how we actually provide them a better society at the end of the day, right? Before that, a couple of rebuttals, right? The only thing couple of things they come up here and told you, right? Firstly, they told you how they can even the gap and how the teachers from the good schools are going to go to less good schools, right? We think that it doesn't necessarily mean all other schools are just going to go higher up, because that just doesn't make sense. Because when you think logically, if a lot of if one good teacher from UITM goes to Harvard and now Harvard is not there, he goes back to UITM, right? That doesn't necessarily mean UITM is going to be incredibly good. That's not how it works. You have to have a lot of really good minds that think alike to go one place. That's how you actually benefit the most to these students, right? Okay, but even if it doesn't necessarily even the playing field, right? Because some of these good lecturers are going to go to some courses, and only some courses are going to be good and other courses are going to be bad. You're not necessarily changing the gap at the end of the day. But if there is no best college, we think that you have nothing to strive for, right? If these parents are pressuring these people so much, then there is nothing to strive for. There is something to strive for, which is still college, right? We think college still exists, and what happens is people will still strive for college, and that still happens. It's not the pressure on our side. It's not mutually exclusive. You still have pressure on your side. But why is this very bad? Because now you don't necessarily have the best school, and every other school is just gonna be decent. Why is decent bad? Because you can't necessarily measure who's best and who's not. I want to tell you way more benefits that happen if these people actually go to best schools and end product of our society, right? But the other thing that they try to tell us is how the reason why minorities are not that smart is because they can't go to elite colleges, right? We think that's very, very harmful, because that's not how it goes. And as a minority, or as a person who is very, very poor, you don't necessarily strive to get to elite college. You only strive to go to college. And even if you strive to go to elite college, that's very good. At least you have that motivation. And I don't think your parent is going to force you to go for the best school possible. They just want you to live, because right now you have so much on your plate. You have to think about how you're going to live, how you're going to go to school, how you're going to eat. That's really, really important, and we don't think they have that much time to think about the elite colleges and stuff like that. Before I move on, yeah.
So, okay, even if that was true, right, would these people not still, since this narrative exists that people from elite colleges are, more capable, would that not mean that they're still accepting pressure from on a societal level?
They do. They will still get pressure, sure. But we think that if this pressure comes in the expense, of everyone else who is dreaming big, gets snatched away from that dream, we think that's very harmful. Because the main reason why you want to study, even if your parent pressures you, even the main reason why you want to study is because your parents. And I'm going to explain that in my speech, right? Just sit down. So let's move on. They try to tell you how they are going to raise the standard for education, right? I'm going to tell you that in my arguments. I have 3 arguments for you today. Firstly, how having dreaming big is very, very important. Secondly, how we actually discriminate people in right now. And tell you how we can provide a sense of security. And the end product of going to Harvard is very, very important, right? So, let's move on. We think that sure, some people who don't get to Harvard are going to feel very rejected. That's very sad. But firstly, you're trying to tell me that the main cause of depression is not being accepted to college, which is just not true. People get depression anyway, so you have to solve depression there. But even if it's true, we think that it's not our burden to solve depression. But even if it's our burden to solve depression, it's completely fine for us. At least we can get some good benefits for other people. At least we can get that motivation that we so desperately need. The reason why we actually study is because our parents definitely want us to go to Ivy League, and that's really good. And sure, parents are sometimes very pressuring, but at least you want to study because you want to get to Harvard because your parents said so. At the end of the day, you get good grades. And as long as you get them good grades, we're completely fine with that. You can pressure them all you want. As long as you get the good grades, we're completely fine with that. As long as you get to Harvard, we're really, really okay with that, right? So you have to actually if that pressure just magically disappears on your side, people are not going to feel pressure to actually study. The overall marks are just going to decrease, and at the end of the day, you're going to get a lot more depressed students because their marks are just going to be bad, right? So let's move on. How can people discriminate right now? Is it sure?
If a student is unable to score well, as your side chooses to believe will always happen, and your parents are still pressuring them, what will happen to the student then?
Okay, firstly, if college exists, your parents are still going to pressure you to do good, and that's really good. At least you have that form of pressure. And if you don't have that form, and if they are like very bad and they're going to be pressured, you have to tell them you have to educate these parents to not pressure their children. Like, you're going to tell them how to parent. You have to tell them if your child still does very bad, you have to educate them and tell them if your child has depression, you don't have